Hello. Are there people in the audience who do not speak Finnish and would prefer that I do the introduction in English? All right, minority rules. It's great to see so many people here. We kind of started setting this thing up at the last minute, so grateful to see so many interested people showing up. My name is Oskari Kaupinmäki and I work as a project coordinator here at the Urban Environment Division. Few practical notes at first. You may exit the premises at any time if you wish, the same way you came in. The doors are locked, but just you click the handle there and you can get out, and then at the end of the session you'll go back the same way as well. If you get lost, just tuck one of our hands and we'll make sure you get out. Just a short little introduction before I let the star hit the stage. Helsinki and cities alike are going through a transformation. These transformations that we're going through are causing people to be anxious, a little curious, even though some people welcome the changes with open arms. Now, today, we are very privileged to have a professional shed some light into these changes as to why we are doing it and why we're pushing forward. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome our star guest, Mikael Colville-Andersen, on stage.
Cool. Thank you. Just gotta make sure the sound is okay. Everybody can hear? Okay. Great. I just arrived today from Copenhagen, and then I thought, how long has it been since I've been in Helsinki? And it's like 9 years I spoke at a conference here. So I don't think any of us should spend 9 years without visiting all of the Nordic capitals, except Oslo, because nobody cares about it. But I mean, when the whole world is looking at us and all the things that we're doing in all the different areas of city life, I mean, we got to remember to check each other out once in a while, right? Like, and see the cool stuff. So I'm going to talk about bicycle urbanism by design, and I always like to start by saying that I'm not a cyclist. I don't identify as a cyclist. When you're in America and you're doing a conference, everybody in the room just says, what? Like, because they just don't understand that, this guy's going to talk about bikes, but he's not a cyclist. But I'm just a guy who uses a bike to get around my city. I had a company. I was the CEO of a Copenhagenized design company for 10 years, and none of my staff are cyclists. They just use bikes, right? So it's really important for me to say that. I can't fix a bike. I'm never going to learn. I could probably fix a flat tire if I really wanted to, but in Copenhagen we have 600 bike shops, literally 600. And I have one in my building, but I use the one that's 20 meters down the road. So if your tire's flat in the morning, you just put it in the bike shop. So I mean, I know a lot of people who really love cycling and bikes. Yeah, but you got to learn how to fix bikes because it's a beautiful machine. And yeah, I get the whole aesthetics of it, and that's really cool for a lot of people. It's just not me, right? But I believe in the bicycle. I mean, I've spent like 12 years of my life dedicated to getting bicycles back into cities, and I believe in the bicycle as a symbol for everything we should be doing in cities, but also as the most effective tool in our urban toolboxes. It's literally it's the first thing you throw into a city, bicycle infrastructure, and it leads the way for so many other aspects of urban development. In the past 12 years, I've worked with like over 100 cities around the world, working with them or in them in various capacities, and it's really a fascinating time to live in cities for all reasons of urbanism, but also because of the things that cities are doing for bikes. In 2006, there were very few cities on the planet who were even talking about bikes as transport, and now there's hardly any cities left that haven't had the conversation, and many cities who are doing amazing things. So it's been a fun 12 years. In maybe, how many have actually seen this show? Ihmisen kaupunki. Okay, cool. That's really cool because it's in 13 countries now, but like I don't go to those countries all the time, so I kind of forget that it was shown here. So I have no idea if anybody actually watched that shit. So cool, thank you. But yeah, this is what I'm doing now, and this is that whole age of urbanism, as I call it, like curating all of these amazing people in cities around the world who are realizing, wait, I don't have to wait for the municipality anymore. I can actually just get my neighbors together and make a pop-up space on our street for our kids to play safe or whatever. It really, I really like to highlight this, that it is the age of urbanism, and stuff is so interesting right now. So yeah, we love the title in Finnish, ihmisen kaupunki, right? It's a really hard to translate, this title. We didn't even think about it. I made it up, and And in Italy, it's like stories from cities of the future. In French, it's cities at the height of men, at human scale. And then you guys are just going, people city, okay? But it's cool. We love Finland. So cool. I don't have to explain that. I have these 2 books out. And this is the one I published last year. This is the definitive guide to global bicycle urbanism, everything I'm talking about today in one, 282 pages, sort of summarizing my entire last 10 years of my life. But I know who's going to read this. Hopefully a lot of you guys will read this. And the people who follow me on Twitter and the people who come to these conferences and working with cities and design and architecture. But most people are not going to read it. So 2 weeks ago I published the book on the right, A Short Introduction to Bicycle Urbanism for People Who Don't Give a Fuck. And I'm publishing it in 10 languages now. I got my whole network's just going, yeah, let me do the Italian, Michael. Oh my God, I'm doing the Turkish. So it's really this is the one you buy for the people who will hate it the most, right? That uncle we have or that colleague at our work who's just like, oh, let's fucking bikes. This is the one you just slip onto their desk when they're not looking. And so yeah, it's for fun, but I mean, we need to still talk about the importance of bikes in cities. So it's just literally a minimalistic book with a little paragraph on each page about all this data, all the stats, and making fun of the people who are skeptics. So it's a totally different ball game, but it's the same topic. But before I talk about, I'm going to talk about bikes, I think, but I mean, I like to talk about urban democracy. This for me is really a key element in everything that we're doing in our cities. And I can really get all poetic about the streets in cities. I've done so much research into the history of the streets and the urban history and stuff. And like the streets are the skeletal structure of the city, right? They're like the veins that pump the lifeblood of the city out to all corners of the urban landscape. They are integral. And it's really important to remember that we've lived in cities together for 7,000 years, give or take, depending which geeky historian you're talking to, but let's just say 7,000 years, and we have a lot of experience that we forget. But for 7,000 years in our cities, the streets were the most democratic space in the history of Homo sapiens. Like, everything happened in the streets. They were extensions of our homes, of our living rooms, sure, you could die of tuberculosis or the plague in European cities 500 years ago, but the streets, despite the smell and the whatever, I mean, they were still the most democratic space. We transported ourselves, yeah, but we bought and sold our stuff in the streets. We gossiped, we flirted, we found our partners, fell in love, broke up. Our children played in the streets. Everything happened there. And you've all seen old photos of what it was like, but it was universal, absolutely everywhere for 7,000 years. And then we went and did a stupid thing. I don't know if inventing the car was a stupid thing. That was what happened back then. But putting them into our cities was really where we started, the journey to destruction, as it were. Now, when the car was invented, that was before, but when it really started to come into cities was in about the 1920s. More in America. Everything was 20 years ahead in America regarding the car. And it's really interesting to consider what happened. These two things that happened. The first thing was, back then we had urbanization, right? Late 1800s, early 1900s, people moving to cities like never before. And engineers were the urban heroes of the day. They were desperately trying to figure out how to get water and electricity to homes and sewage away from it and doing an amazing job. And, we still stand on their shoulders today. But then the car shows up and starts killing people, really, from day one. They're in America, like, it was the number of kids killed by cars in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s was astronomical, like hundreds of thousands of people being killed by cars. And this is something they call the anti-automobile age. There's an amazing book called Fighting Traffic, which highlights this entire journey of how streets were democratic, and then the car showed up, and driving a car in a city in 1920 was like the least cool thing you could ever do. People hated cars and the people who drove them. And if you hit a kid on the street, you could almost get lynched out of your car and beaten. It was really, we just protested from the very beginning. No, this doesn't make any sense. And it all happened in America, really, and documented well. It happened there first. But what happened was, what happened was that the engineers were given the jobs. They're going, okay, traffic safety, people are dying, these cars are killing everybody. What do we do? Engineers, You guys are doing all this other stuff that's amazing. Figure out traffic safety. So the engineers are going, cool, more jobs, great. But they started looking at it, and that's really where traffic engineering as a profession started. But what happened was that the perception switched. We went from streets being regarded as democratic spaces to becoming like puzzles to be solved with mathematical equations by engineers, right? And they sort of took it out of democracy and put it into computer models, or they didn't have computers, mathematical models, right? And that was just this massive switch. The other thing that happened was the automobile industry had a problem. They had shiny new objects, and they wanted to sell a lot of them. And there was this pushback in the anti-automobile age. And they started using literally spin, name-calling, and marketing to change the perceptions of the perception that streets were for everybody. They wanted the streets to become the space for cars exclusively. And they went at it. Jaywalking, the word jaywalking there, it's an old American, it's still around in America, but it was an old phrase. A jay was like a country bumpkin, somebody from, north of Helsinki who came into the big city and didn't know how to walk around. There's so many people and, was always walking on the wrong side of the sidewalk, irritating the people who are living in the city. Like, dude, go back to the country, right? These kind of people, we still have them today. But, and so the automobile industry said, we're going to take that word, I'm going to put it with walking, and we're going to start telling people that crossing the street in the middle of the block, which is what it means, is now socially unacceptable. So, everybody had to be shepherded up to these new crosswalks and wait for permission to cross the street. We couldn't just cross the street. Like for 7,000 years, if I wanted bread, and there was a bakery, I would cross the street and I would buy bread. And now the automobile industry said, nah, not anymore. No, because we have cars now. And they had Boy Scouts all over America, they had Boy Scouts handing out these little flyers to people who were crossing the street, like we always did. And, hey, you can't do that. That's not cool. And, if you live in a city, you want to be cool, right? And they started ridiculing people. There was literally a designed campaign. I just heard a podcast. I didn't know this aspect of it a couple days ago. So the police were instructed to catch these jaywalkers and say, hey, you can't cross there anymore. What are you, like a jaywalker? You're like, just calling them names on the street. All the people around started pointing and laughing, and that was the last time they did that. Geez, if you just ridicule somebody, public humiliation works as a marketing tool is the lesson here, right? And it took about 20 years for them to change this perception. The last thing they needed to do was to figure out the angry mothers and fathers of America, because their kids were still getting killed. So this is a really fun fact, but the playground that we all know in all of our cultures around the world, this little zoological garden into which we put our kids, while we check Facebook, and while they play, this was an invention of the automobile industry. They got together with some other industries, and he said, right, we got to get these damn kids out of the way, right? Let's do some seesaws or some swings. I don't give a damn, just put it in one spot. And then they say, hey, moms and dads, put your kids over there. And they're going, oh my God, this is totally unsafe, so that's a good idea. It was very intuitive as a parent saying, yeah, I get that. But finally, the coast was clear, right? It took 20 years, and the coast was clear, and the streets were clear of these irritating, squishy obstacles called humans trying to buy bread or whatever they're doing. And that is really the greatest paradigm shift in the history of our cities, where we gave up the streets completely and said, right, that's where cars drive. And it's still everywhere in the world, this is the street, this is for cars, you hear people say. Like streets were invented with the automobile and they both fell out of the sky together. No, the streets are ours. They are our democratic space, and it was taken away. So we're still living with that. But this is a sign that we're moving towards a different paradigm shift. This is my favorite quote. I'm still waiting for a new quote to replace this, but it's so good. The fact is that automobiles no longer have a place in the big cities of our time. And this is a mayor, not a mayor of some Danish town you can't pronounce or some Dutch town, with some weird pronunciation. It's the mayor of Paris. For 12 years he was mayor, and this guy, he was unlike other French mayors who wanted to build huge monuments. This guy's going, nah, let's just make Paris nicer. Let's slow down the city. Let's use bicycles as the most effective tool. So Paris has like 20,000 bike share bikes, the most successful bike share system in a large city in the world. And he traffic calmed the neighborhoods. By 2020, Like the lady who's mayor now, she's continuing. It's the same party, so she's continuing the same work. And by 2020, that's like next year, geez, 85% of Paris will be a 30K zone. That's Paris it's smaller than you think, but it's still quite a large area. So like, you have some of the main streets that'll still be 40 or 50, but most of Paris will be 30K. And, all the data is coming out of Paris is awesome for traffic safety and whatnot. They're still battling pollution and things. But this is a sign we're going somewhere else now. And I call it going back to the future. All right, we're going back to this place where we did a lot of really cool stuff, and we're just going to put it back into our cities. And it's not even him alone. There's mayors in New York and Vancouver and Buenos Aires, all around the world who have been quoted for similar things like this. So this is really a sign that stuff's happening. So I like to highlight, how things used to be and how they are now. This is a short history of traffic engineering. For 7,000 years, we provided our primary transport forms with the fast A to B. We thought about A to B, right? And then 1900 came along, bikes conquered our cities, conquered our societies. It was an amazing time. And public transport, we were still rational in providing them with a fast A to B. 1920s, cars showed up, but still the other transport forms were dominant and we were rational. And then everything went to hell, really, from the 1950s in Europe, right? In European cities. It was earlier in America, but that's where we all went wrong. We entered this car-centric age after the Second World War. We copy-pasted all these American traffic engineering standards. We went, yeah, cool, let's just do that. I mean, all of our cities around the world and here in Europe. And that's how it ended up. The car has the fast A to B in our planning. And everybody else just has to try and figure out how to get around a city, right? Yeah, I don't know what you're going to do, but good luck with that. But hey, we got some pretty awesome streets now for cars. So that's where we came from, but this is where we are and where we are going. This is the quickest traffic planning guide you'll ever see. You make a fast A to B for bikes, pedestrians, and public transport, and you make driving a car a pain in the ass. And you make it more expensive, you make it slower, more difficult. Everything you can do to make it an unattractive transport form is what you do. And, we know I work a lot with transport psychology, right? It's not just planning, we have space and stuff, but no, it's transport psychology. We know that, these three groups are intermodal, incredibly intermodal. When my tires flat in the morning, I'm going, oh, God damn it, in the bike shop. But I walk to the metro and I get to work in another way. You can never be late for work, really, in Copenhagen. It's a real pain. Sometimes you want to be, but you can't. No, I'll be like 10 minutes late because I have to choose another transport form or a mix, right? And we don't even think about it. It's an easy switch for us, right? Which is fantastic about moving around a city is we have that advantage. We know in transport psychology that motorists are the last people to change their behavior. You can say it's their fault, but it's psychology. It's just like you invest a lot of money in this machine, and big machine breaks, expensive machine breaks down, and I can't come to work today. My car broke down, and on the other end, it's like, oh my God, fix that. Geez, I have total respect. I can send flowers. It's like, and so and it's just like we know that's the difficult part. So you talk about the carrots and the sticks, right? We just need big ass sticks. Right? We just know, we need carrots, right? But then you just need the biggest sticks you have in your city. And that's really where and this is happening. This is not like some theory, right? This is so many cities are actually thinking along these lines. We have to change the question. Many questions in our cities from this last 100 years of confusion and singular focus on cars and whatnot, but especially regarding transport. So the model that we adopted from the Americans without thinking, without really any rational thought, the roads of our cities, right? We have to change that question. Really, traffic engineers all over the world, I work with them and I've talked to them about this and they go, oh yeah, totally. That's basically my entire education is how many cars can we move down a street? Right? First day of traffic engineering university. It's like that. Let's talk about that. And I have research from a bunch of colleagues from all over the world. So it's like, yeah, basically. And how many cars can we move down the street? We have to change that question to this. How many people can we move down the street? It's like one word we need to switch out there. How many people? And when you start thinking about moving people down the street, you start thinking really about the future of transport in a city. This model that I just whipped up in Photoshop, the model at the bottom has 10 times the capacity for moving people down the street than the model that we just copy-pasted from the Americans in the 1950s. and we have urbanization. Our cities are growing. So we need to think about how to move people. And, a city like Helsinki has a lot of low-hanging fruit. There's the city in Belgium, Antwerp. I've been working with them, and they're going, yeah, but Michael, we got like 30% on bikes. They're pretty cool on bikes. But we got all these trams, and we have buses, and we have cars. And I'm going, this is a luxury problem. All you have to do is like start, chiseling off, right? You don't actually have to add. It's not like other cities in America that have no bikes, hardly any sidewalks, no public transport. I mean, that's really the tough job. But in a city like Helsinki, you have that low-hanging fruit. But we got to think like this. We got to change this question. And once you simply switch out that word, things become a lot easier. Now, I work a lot with anthropology and transport psychology, like all of these sciences before we get to the actual planning of a street. And this is like some kind of crazy stuff apparently I've been doing for 10 years. Like, over the past 10 or 12 years, people are going, you go to conferences where there's a lot of engineers or American planners or whatnot, and they're going, oh, God, anthropology. Like, they're just like, oh, you hippies with your people sciences. Like it's really, but now we can see it's changing. There's a lot of more acceptance. In our Nordic countries, we're already a little bit better off, right? We already, you're an urban planner in America, and you get your first job at a city, and there's the engineer, and the guy's going, oh, and you've never met. You don't really know what each other do. Where, in a lot of our universities here, you're connected from the beginning. You understand what both of these professions do. You have more respect for each other. But actually, on that note about changing the question, these 6 different engineers around the world after a keynote, 6 different countries, all came up to me and said basically verbatim the same line. Michael, thanks for the talk. I'm an engineer, and I'm sort of wondering if they're going to hit me. And okay, cool. And they all said, yeah, you know what? Nobody told me that there was another problem to solve. Like, it's verbatim in 6 different accents in English. Nobody told me there's something else to do. I was only told to figure out how to move cars. And you're telling me there's something else to do? It's like, it's like somebody tells you there's no ice cream in the freezer, and then you open the freezer, you're going, oh my God, there's ice cream. Like, it's like, man, they all say the same thing. I'm a problem solver. Give me new problems to solve, and I am in. And in America, actually, they talk about, I meet people saying, I'm an engineer, but I'm a reformed engineer. Like, I get this. So we can talk now. We're like this, right? So it's just kind of funny how we're moving into this paradigm shift. But we need to understand what we're talking about. We need to think about the people. I'm speaking at a Smart Cities conference tomorrow here in Helsinki, and when I speak at these kind of conferences, the first thing I say is, hi, I'm the only person who's going to talk about humans during this conference, because everybody else is going to talk about their gadgets and their stuff they've invented, and literally nobody talks about like humans at Smart City conferences. So, but we have to talk about it, and we have to respect it. Now, why do we ride bikes in Copenhagen, right? You have the Americans and the Germans also. They're so environmentally friendly in Denmark. That's why you all ride bikes. You're all saving a polar bear on your bicycle every day. And they literally think that's why, and it's not true at all. The city of Copenhagen has asked the people every 2 years since 1996, what's your main reason for riding a bike? And the answers basically never change. For that long, the majority say, it's quick. Like, it's literally the fastest way for me to go from A to B. That's why I do it. Like, what's the big deal? Then you get the smaller percentage there. They say, I get that 30 minutes a day of, getting my pulse up like the doctors, all the newspapers talk about. I feel good about myself riding a bike every day, right? With my basket and, my music in my ears, whatever they do. Only 1% in Copenhagen say, I'm saving the planet, man. Environmental reasons, bike for the planet. Like, and of course, everybody else is aware. We're Nordics, so we're just humans in modern societies. We kind of know that it's a good thing, but the main reason is it's quick. And I call it A to Bism, right? If you think about A to Bism, what can you do to make the bicycle the fastest way from A to B? If you do that, you got like just the weirdest people personally, all of you will be seen on bikes. Because humans are basically like rivers. We're always going to find the quickest route. Right? It is in our DNA, our wayfinding. Like, if I have to leave this room now, I've already mapped it, probably in my head. Yeah, that's probably the quickest route, because if I go out there, I have to cross the lobby to go up the stairs. I've already figured out how to get out of this room in the quickest way. I'm already irritated that there's like this box here that I have to, we literally, all of you do this every single day, on the sidewalk, doing the dance with another pedestrian. You're already irritated because it's messing with your A to B, right? It's your flow, man. And once we understand that that is what the only thing that humans want when moving around a city, to work, education, to the Tinder date, away from the Tinder date because it failed miserably, to the supermarket, wherever we go, if that is the bicycle, that's the win. That is half the battle right there. That requires infrastructure, which I'll get into. But this is understanding why we ride, and people ride bicycles. It's simply the fastest way from A to B. So I got friends like in Denmark who are not in my industry, but they're going, Michael, I drive a car. I live outside Copenhagen. You know where I live? I live way up the map there. I drive. And I'm going, cool. I don't give a shit. Like it's like I'm their priest. I'm so sorry I drive, Michael. I'm going, dude, I don't. But they all say the same thing, because they're my friends. They're going, okay, I actually rode my bike to the station and took the train in and rode the bike, and I timed it, and driving a car is 15 minutes faster. And I'm going, I get that. You got 3 kids or whatever, you could do the right thing, man, but I understand the A to Bism. I understand why the car is their preferred choice. You have then you have the stupid people driving under 5 kilometers to go somewhere. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame, right? But generally, we have to think like this: A to Bism. Human observation is also incredibly important, and design, and then there's planning and engineering. Right? We got to wait a long time before we even call in the engineers, because we got a lot of work to do before that, and maybe some tech. I think I have a slide for that later. Desire lines. This is the busiest bicycle street in the world, in Copenhagen. Nørrebrogade. Don't try to pronounce that, because it'll hurt. But it's basically, for 100 years, it's one of the main artery from the north. And all roads lead to Rome in Copenhagen, like many cities. So this flow just continued straight down there to the city center, and everybody went to work or education. But a few years ago, like 10 years ago, the city noticed something strange started happening that had never happened at this location. Right here, there's a sidewalk, and cyclists started going across the sidewalk to get to this parallel street, to get out of this rush hour, and they've never ever done that before. And the city of Copenhagen, they're going, okay, some cities probably would put up fences to stop the people from doing it, barriers to prevent them, or get the police to hand out tickets there, and we'll teach them a lesson. But the city of Copenhagen, they go, no, there's a reason. Okay, what is it? And they started following people, interviewing people, doing the research. So we have a whole new development south of Copenhagen with national broadcasting, the university buildings, lots of workplaces. They're going, this is where they hop out of the city, hop out of the busy rush hour, and do a detour around the city to go over there. Oh, we have a new mobility pattern in Copenhagen. Oh my God. So what they did was they made a temporary bike lane across that sidewalk, which doesn't fit into our best practice, but on this location it made sense. And they tested it for 6 months, and the number of people who were using it exploded. It was like a massive increase. People were going, oh, there's like a new bike lane. I'm going to do it. So they actually ended up making a permanent bike lane, or cycle track. In English we say cycle track when it's physically separated, and a bike lane is just paint, right? So a cycle track. And then and they have a turn lane to go onto it and everything. It's an amazing success. And desire lines, this is what we call them. It's the most beautiful expression in urban planning. You see them, I saw a bunch today walking around Helsinki. You got like sidewalk doing the 90 degree, there's some grass, and people are going, I'm just going this way, right? And you see the worn down grass. That's a desire line. So these are the bicycle version of desire lines. The people of our cities are telling us, like sending us messages in a bottle 24/7, right? For 7,000 years they've been doing this, going, this is how I want to use the city, right? And for 7,000 years they were allowed to, except not the king's palace or something, you have to go around that or whatever. But generally, that's how cities were designed, for desire lines. With the arrogance of a lot of modern American traffic engineering for the past 60 years, it's just like, no, stop. You're all sheep now. You have to go here and wait. Now you have these buttons you have to push in Helsinki. That's just like, it's like filling out an application form. I would like to cross the street. And waiting for the response from the city. Oh, there it is. It's like so stupid. Oh my God, I hate that. But this is democracy in movement. There was like a handful of law-breaking citizens going on, because it's illegal to ride a bike on the sidewalk in Denmark, right? So this is like law-breaking. But the city went, okay, there's a reason, and we're going to legitimize this. We're going to understand you, which is just like just respecting the citizens by just wanting to figure out what's inside your head, right? Instead of assuming you know everything. Okay, now we know you. We got you figured out. We're going to accommodate you. We're going to legitimize your illegal behavior, and we're going to allow thousands and thousands more to follow the lead that you explained to us was important. That's beautiful urban planning and beautiful city planning as well, and just should be the standard in all politics. But that's a different discussion. So 2012, I wanted some answers, and I wanted to figure out, I wanted to learn about cyclist behavior because I was staring at it and studying it and documenting it. And I said, right, anybody else done this before? Or was it just this weird guy doing it? And I looked through the archives in 6 different countries, searching for any kind of, academic behavioral study of cyclist behavior. We do a lot more of these kind of studies now, than we did in the 1950s or whatnot, but still, was there anything out there? Because the bicycle was like the primary transport form in all of our cities for like decades and decades, It was amazing, and yet there was nothing. There's nothing out there throughout the past 100 years, 130 years of the bicycle in our cities. And I was just going, okay, how come? So, I mean, the bicycle for us, like in Copenhagen or in cities like Copenhagen and Amsterdam, it's a tool, right? It's not like a fetish thing or a hobby thing. It's just like it's a tool that makes our daily life easier, like a vacuum cleaner, basically. The bicycle is our vacuum cleaner to get around the city. But think about your vacuum cleaner at home. You don't polish that, you don't have like 5 vacuums in your, and you don't wave at other vacuum cleaning people on the street. Love your vacuum. Hey, you coming on Wednesday to the club? Yeah, no, it's just a tool, right? And so I realized that nobody had looked at this, and it was really bizarre to be the guy to discover that. So I was inspired by this American William H. White, who filmed public squares in New York, trying to figure out how pedestrians, will use it. And if you put a bunch of chairs out there and there's no chairs, then people use it. Fascinating man. He's The Secret Life of Small Urban Places is the most amazing film, like on Vimeo or somewhere out on the internet, man. Oh, he has this voice, this nice uncle voice from America, and oh, look at this guy. And it's an amazing narration. Anyway, I said, right, I want to do that with bikes. So I stuck a camera outside the window of where I had my office in Frederiksberg in Copenhagen, and I filmed an intersection for 12 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., boom. And then I hired an anthropologist, not like a planner or anybody related to transport. I said, no. She's an anthropologist. She studies these animals called humans. I said, study the herd animals who are doing this bike thing in that intersection and tell me what you find out. And she loved that. It was cool. And she just stared at that for like 250 hours of direct observation, just like scrolling back and just watching 12 hours of footage. 16,631 cyclists in that first intersection study. And since then, I have stared at about 100, I was watching it too, 106,000 cyclists in like a bunch of cities, most of it in Copenhagen, like 80,000 in Copenhagen, 12-hour sections, right? And just trying to figure out how these people are using these car-centric intersections. Because we can have bike lanes all over the place and cycle tracks, but like we still have these damn intersections, which we got to figure out, because that's where a lot of the incidents happen. So we tried to figure out patterns, behavior. I don't know. We're freestyling back then, and now we know a lot more. When you stare at so many of these people, like you learn some stuff. Luckily, so I mean, this kind of maps we do. We have it's kind of hard to see, but we say how many people were doing this route, the A, B, C, D. How many people turning left, turning right, doing absolutely everything. And even in Copenhagen, we have a discussion about cyclist behavior, and we have a lot of cyclists, right? And you'll still have people going, oh, those damn cyclists. I'm going, but dude, you ride a bike. I know, but those other cyclists, oh, fuck, I hate those. Oh, God. We'll all talk like that. You go into work and you have one moron who does a stupid thing, and then your whole day's ruined, and all cyclists are morons, even though you're on a bike yourself. It's really funny. But so nobody could tell me how many cyclists would break the law. Like, there was no data about this either. There was nothing. And everybody had an idea. Like, even the very bicycle-friendly mayor of Copenhagen, I was talking to him, I'm going, dude, 16,631, In that intersection, how many broke a law in 12 hours? Oh, like 30%. I'm fine. And he's fine with 30%. He rides a bike, he doesn't care. I mean, I had 20, 30, 40, 50%. Nobody had any idea. 7%. 7%. And this is, the average across Copenhagen with 80,000 cyclists is 5%. And this changed the conversation in Copenhagen. Like the car-centric kind of politicians, they didn't believe it. You know, they thought, oh, Michael, he's just making this shit up because he's like, he's Mr. He likes bikes. And but it's really credible data. Like when you stare at people for that long and that many. So then we did realize that there are patterns. And the anthropologist, she's saying, Michael, there are patterns, and Michael loves patterns. And she says, like, okay, it's kind of really interesting. Like, we divided them up. The momentumists are an important. We made that word up, right? But to understand how to put bicycles into cities, you have to understand the nature of the machine. Never mind getting hit by a car, but what's the thing you don't want to do when you're on a bike? Anybody? Stop. It's just somewhere in your head you're going, fuck. And then I have to really get off the seat at the intersections. That's the second, oh God. It's literally like an irritation. So we know that cyclists will try to maintain their momentum, right? You got people track standing or like coasting just a little bit past the stop line. It's going to switch in a minute. I know it. And that's what we have to understand. And this is what we have to design for is this tendency we have. So we notice that these momentumists, she said there's groups here. There's the 1%, and there's a 1% at your supermarket, at your job, at your bowling alley. There's always that 1% we hate, right? That's humans, that's society. We can't do anything about that. But then she said these 6%, they're like just trying to keep the momentum going, but they're doing it in a really nice way. There's no little old ladies jumping for their lives. And we started to really look at specifically at zooming in and looking at these people. And we realized, these people are okay. They're just freestyling a bit, bending the law, not breaking it. I had a debating with a policeman at a conference. He's going, there is law. You break it or you don't. I'm going, what? There's anthropology. Oh, I'm a policeman. So you got those kind of people, right? And I understand that in a way. But no, we really, really looked at these people. It was fascinating. We noticed stuff that nobody has ever thought about. And people this is one of the patterns. This guy, it's illegal to ride a bike in a pedestrian crossing in Denmark, right? That's Danish law. And we noticed that people, the momentumists, this guy was coming from over here, and he wants to go down here. So he should just go over here and turn left. That's fine. Super quick. But he had momentum, so he rode through the pedestrian crossing and then and he timed the lights perfectly. He does the same route every day, like many of us do. And he went over there, and then he continued to go to work here. But the anthropologist, she said, there's the pattern here. And I'm zooming in on their faces. And I'm going, what? There's okay, cool. And so she says, okay, first of all, we don't need to have a PhD in anthropology, any of us, to assume that if Michael does something socially unacceptable to you, I will make myself smaller, right? Like when we're sad, we're like, we shrink because, we're sad or we're embarrassed. So if I do something really, I'm going to say, excuse me, I got to go. That's what we do as humans. That's our body language in those situations. So you would assume that somebody who was knowingly breaking a Danish law, or any law, it doesn't have to be Danish, Jesus, that they would sort of trying to make themselves invisible. And the opposite was true. And this is so fascinating, still is to this day. This guy was standing up. Yeah, he's literally standing up off his saddle. He's making himself larger. He's actually notice me, right? So what he's doing is, I know I'm breaking the law, and I'm sorry about that. So I'm actually going to broadcast this fact, but I'm doing it really slow. He was just crawling through there. He was really considerate. And that's his body language was considerate. If you're in the flock of animals, and one guy, sorry everybody, right, here I am, I know I'm doing this. And we zoomed in on their faces, and there is literally a pattern. They all had kind of a stupid, we're Nordics, we don't smile all the time, you know that. But they had kind of this stupid look on their face, and they're looking around. They weren't looking at anybody, but they were doing some weird bobby thing with their head, kind of smiling. They go, I know, look at me, I'm doing something so fucking stupid, it's wrong, I know, but just a minute, almost done. And then they hit the cycle track here, and they all just went, we looked at their posture, so if this is how I ride a bike, it's and then boom, and then they went to work. So they were super considerate, man. They weren't trying to piss anybody off. They were just like saying, I know, right? And we're okay with this because I'm really letting you know in all the anthropological ways that I'm sorry, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? But so these momentumists, I'm fine with that. So really it's 1%. And 93% just did everything by the book, man. That's like super boring. It's probably like 190% in Sweden, right? But yeah, nobody's ever looked at this. Man, that changes the conversation. Man, that makes it easier to think about new ideas about how to plan for bicycles, you know? I got a slide about some of the new innovation that we have in Copenhagen. I'll get there. We need an urban revolution, you know? We don't need a tedious evolution where we have meetings and discuss. And some of the jobs I've been, asked to do is in a North American city, we want to put in a cycle track, 2 kilometers here in the downtown. I'm going, what, just like here? If this long table, you're just going to put it here. Yeah, then we'll test it, and it'll be like a 3-year process where we, it's like a 1-year process to build. I mean, I'm just going like, what? Come on. How do you get there without dying? And how do you, when you leave it, how do you survive? It's completely irrelevant just to put in one little cycle track and test it. You got to have a network. You got to have something that has to make sense, right? So we need this revolution. We got to put the punk back into kaupunki. Did that work? I just made that up on the plane. That's right. Hashtag. Oh, I didn't know if that was going to work, that joke. Okay. But Finns and Danes, we share humor. We're funnier, but you get our humor, so that's good. So another thing, the arrogance of space is what I call it. This is other stuff that I figure out. I'm standing on the Eiffel Tower looking down, looking at Paris, and looking down at this intersection. And this is between the tower and the river. And if you look at that intersection, man, that is that A to B-ism for cars. You see the curved, it's a wide Parisian boulevard, so they have space, but they have that curved, corner. That was simply designed so that cars didn't have to slow down, so you could maintain a decent speed. You didn't have, it's so stupid now to think about, right? But then I look down there and I go back to the office, take the photo, and I put like a filter, like square meters over it. Super easy, it takes 10 seconds in Photoshop. And then how much space is for who here, right? And then when you start doing that, it is a whistleblower, man. It's like the Edward Snowden of urbanism. Everything is revealed. It's WikiLeaks. It's just, you just realize, look at all of that red for motorists. Like, man, why have they been given that much space? And, okay, are they using it? The purple is some weird bike boxes. There's very little, for bikes and very little for pedestrians. And then you start counting how many people are actually using this. Okay, so there are 12 people standing there waiting for permission to cross the street and 26 people doing that. It's like one of the busiest pedestrian intersections on the planet. Like not 10 million people going to see the Eiffel Tower, right? Like it's just insane. And still, it is arrogant. And then there's only 23 people in the vehicles, and even the vehicles themselves don't take up that much space. Completely unnecessary and not very modern at all. And then so I just sort of go into Photoshop and, I just made this and put it out on Twitter and just went, the French, it went viral, okay, it's not that hard. It took me 20 minutes with a pencil, and then, it took an intern 2 hours to actually do the work, but we, but then, that's, working with it in the cheapest possible way without have to actually physically moving the curbs, we can still do it, right? We still will physically separate, there will be some kind of barrier here to protect from the cars. And, what pedestrian history has ever done, the 90-degree turn, right? We all cut the corner. So why don't we have pedestrian crossings that reflect our A to B-ism and desire lines? I mean, that's paint. We can do that tomorrow all over Helsinki. So, super easy, and it's all been invented. This story is pretty cool. This is Copenhagen. This is the same place, the busiest bicycle street in the world. In the morning rush hour, there's about 150 bikes per light cycle every 2 minutes. If you're ever in Copenhagen, man, I got bars you should go to, but you just go there between 8 and 9 in the morning and you just cry. Either tears of joy or despair. It's up to you who you are and where you're from. But man, I still just stand there like, holy shit. It is really the most beautiful rush hour in the world. But this bridge, this is the Nørrebro neighborhood, and this is that main entrance for centuries. And nobody owns a car in this neighborhood. Copenhagen is like 25% car ownership, and that neighborhood is like 14. Like nobody has one. It's like super close to the city center. Lots of other options, right? So but that street was dead, on the other side going away. For years, it was just like really crappy shops. Nobody wanted to make a cool shop there. There was 15,000 cars a day. None of them live in that neighborhood. The Italians have the traffic planners in Italy, they call them parasites, which is a great word. So it's just people using the street, not contributing anything to the host organism, which is the neighborhood. They just go, oh, it's a street, totally cool. I'm not going to go to that shop. I'm not going to go to that shop. I'm going to go to the shops when I go home. So we had this problem with too many cars in a neighborhood and a very polluted and unattractive street. So 2007, major redesign. You can't drive a car straight out of the city anymore. You have to do detours and you have to get around and find other routes. But then we narrowed it into two car lanes, super narrow. Like it's just, the buses can just be, they actually measured the buses going, yeah, well, that's how much space we need. So it's narrower than our normal standards in the Nordic countries. The cycle track here is 4 meters wide, one way, and 4 meters wide going this way. You need that here. You have the volume, you have to design for that. But then we also widened the sidewalks. And this bridge is famous. It's like, everybody has been across that bridge. But the wildest thing happened after they did this redesign. And this is what happened. Well, this is some of the things that happened. First of all, after they did this redesign, the number, like in the morning rush hour, that's actually morning rush hour. Like that is peak time. That is like 8:30 in the morning. And you got more bikes at the next, it's like nothing but bikes, and you got like what? 2 cars and a van, right? That's what it's like. There's more traffic later in the day, but in the morning rush hour, it's just the stupidest way to get to work in a car, so you don't do it. So we did a lot of amazing stuff here. And the number of pedestrians went up 165%. Like, you're close to the city there, but people weren't even walking across it because there's nice, that street and it wasn't cool. Cycling went up 60%. Number of bus passengers went up only 5 because it's Northern Europe's busiest bus route already, so there wasn't a lot of space. Now they have longer buses, which is good, so that might be different now. And motorists, 57% drop. That's awesome for that neighborhood. But what happened was this number on the right, an increase of 1,400% of people stopping on the bridge. This is nice. Because it's got lots of sun. You know what that's like for us in the Nordic countries, right? Like it's an amazing sunny spot in the middle of the city, and there's water. And people are going, I'm just going to stay here for a while. Why? I don't know, but let's get beer. Man, and we have a lot of bridges in Copenhagen, and literally the course of 3 months, people are texting me going, hey, Michael, you want to meet on the bridge at 4? And I'm going, totally. Like, it's just the bridge. It's no longer Queen Louise's bridge. It's just the bridge, dude. And when you go past there, like on in the afternoon on a sunny day in the springs, summer and autumn, it's just nothing but people on that one side soaking up the sun, right? And they're eating pizzas, and there's cargo bikes with music, and then there's another cargo bike. You're going through like lots of different soundtracks just on that stretch there. And they're just like, drinking beer and watching cyclists pass, and the cyclists are going, just watching them. People watching. That's what a city is. That's what we need to design for. So that was, and this story was funny because they're going, we're going to do all this stuff. We're going to widen the sidewalks. Great. And then there's like some guy at the back, probably named Jens or some Danish name. I'm the bench guy. Okay, bench guy, Jens, what do you want? Just put some benches out there. Literally, I don't know if there was a Jens, but that's how the story goes. That they said, an afterthought, oh yeah, shit, of course, let's put some benches out. And that was what kick-started the 1400. As soon as they put 2 benches there, they legitimized the desire, maybe not the behavior, but the desire. There's now a bench here. Oh, perfect. And then it just went boom, right? Amazing. So you create better transport in your city, and you create better destinations. And I love the great thing about Copenhagen is that they didn't actually see this coming, that we can still be surprised by amazing results. You think you know it all, and then you just learn something new. That's always good, right? So design before engineering, hashtag. I really think that is where we need to start. Now, design is a human-to-human process, okay? Engineering and is a lot of mathematical models and whatnot, staring at a screen. Design is people. And, whoever made this clicker, right? Where's it from? Probably, Korea or something. Or our smartphones, or our toothbrushes, everything we have, there was a designer or a design team trying to figure that out. And, whoever made this wanted Michael to have an excellent ergonomic experience today. I'm standing here in Helsinki, and I can go boom, and I can go boom, and there's probably even like a little laser thing somewhere, right? Whatever. They succeeded because it's amazing. I'm not selling this product, but that's all they wanted was this moment of this guy doing this thing, and they designed it for that. The weight of it, it's human. Companies, whoever made my smartphone wants to make billions, fine, but the design team's going, okay, Michael needs to have a really good, positive, intuitive experience with the phone. His daughter should be able to operate it. His old dad should be able to operate it, and they succeeded as well, right? That is the human-to-human process. So why don't we design our streets based on this thing that we need about every product we buy? All the design choices we make every day. What pants to buy? What's the new style? What kind of toothbrush? I think it'll have a blue one because I have a green one. No, I think I'm ready for blue now. And this is a thing on the back I can scrape my tongue off. I'm totally going to make this design choice. Whatever. We do it all day long, right? So why don't we design our streets, these democratic spaces, the spaces we share. So like the metaphor is like chair design, right? And we have been designing chairs or interpreting chairs since the Neolithic period. Literally, they dug chair models out of the ground from the Neolithic period. Somebody's going, I could totally make an awesome chair, carving in wood or whatever. And we've all seen chairs like this. It's design museums or exhibitions. Oh, it's an octopus, but it's a chair. Oh my God, that's so funny. Oh, a shopping cart, but it's a chair. You can love it or hate it. It doesn't matter. None of you have 4 of these in your living room for your guests to sit on, right? We just react to it positively or negatively, and whatever, kind of a goofy idea. So if we compare like chair design to bicycle infrastructure design, this might be a cycling map of Helsinki or any other city in Finland. It's a chair. The guy says it works. He's going, everybody, look, it works. You can sit on it, right? But it's broken. There's sharp edges you got to watch out for. I know Helsinki's doing really good for cycling compared to last time I was here, but still, it's not a network, right? You don't have 6 of these around your dining room table for your guests to sit on when they come over for dinner. Technically, it works, but it's kind of still kind of goofy, basically, right? I mean, all people want is a chair, right? All of you, when you came in here today, what did you do? You found a seat and you sat down, right? You're kind of good at it. You've been doing it a while, right? You didn't have to like circle the chair, go, I see where she was going with that. A very interesting interpretation, yes. And where's the on-off button? Is it going to disappear from under my ass during Michael's talk? You weren't worried about that, no. You just sat down. It was easy and intuitive, and that's how walking or cycling in the city should be, and that is something that is real and attainable. Again, not a theory. All we want is a chair. Good design can change human behavior. We're back to the whole, those damn cyclists that we hear, everywhere in the world. If we can bitch about it in Copenhagen, that's one thing because now we have data that can, change that conversation. But you hear it all over the world, right? And you can't complain about cyclist behavior, because unless you give them best practice infrastructure in a complete, cohesive, coherent network, right? Like we have in Copenhagen. Like we don't have the behavior problem anymore, right? We have that 1%, that's it. You can't complain when you haven't given them what they deserve, right? Which is well-designed infrastructure. A red light in Copenhagen, it's like basically just people waiting for the light to change. There's no drama. There's, a few people, will do their momentumist behavior or whatnot, and, it's now legal to turn right on red, for bikes in Copenhagen, only bikes. So we're trying to figure that out. We were doing it anyway, but now it's legal. So so there's some changes, but like we will react positively or negatively to design, right? So if you see cyclists doing stuff, you don't bitch about the cyclist doing it. You're going, okay, what's wrong with this intersection? Because that person is not a lawbreaker. Very few of us are. I don't look for rocks to smash windows when I'm walking down the street. All right, kids, we're going home. Oh, wait, hang on a second. Smash. Okay, great. That's good. I mean, we don't want to do that. We want to live we're conservative. We just want to live a good life, and make some money and be happy, fall in love, whatever. Have a house in the country. Fine. We don't want to break the law. So if people are doing it in some kind of in numbers that mean something, then you look at the infrastructure, right? You don't look at them. It's really the key. I can't tell my kid, I can't give my kids, give them shit for like eating the cookies if I don't even have a cookie jar, right? That doesn't make any sense. So good design improves human behavior. And if you design something beautiful, right? If you have the finished version of the Danish chair, or a beautiful chair, you don't give your kids like pens to draw on it. You say, dude, stay away. You take care of that chair. And that's what you do when you have a beautiful network of bicycle infrastructure. You take care of it, right? I know you're going to say, oh, we have more snow than you do, and you probably do, but we still have snow. I have a whole Instagram called Viking Biking. Vikings Biking on Instagram. It's just photos of people riding bikes in snowstorms, because I was tired of the conversation. You can't ride a bike in the snow. Oh, now I have an Instagram for that. Geez, shut up. God, let's go get a drink. So this is like the network of on-street bicycle infrastructure in Copenhagen. This is where they clear the snow first in the winter. It's the same network. Cycle tracks first, and if it's a bad snowstorm, the roads are going to have to wait. And then when they get their, they get it figured out, then the A roads, B roads, C roads. Like in many cities, we have divided them up. So it is the priority that 8 o'clock in the morning when I come out of my house, there is black asphalt on the cycle tracks. Whether it's a meter of snow, it's like, it doesn't matter. Sometimes they will be behind when it's a snowstorm, but we know that like within an hour, it's going to be fine. Like it'll be clear. It's literally that priority. Oslo's now doing that as well. They're building 140 kilometers of infrastructure, and they're prioritizing snow clearance. I mean, we have all this whole network, a whole armada of these little snow cleaners dedicated only to the bicycle infrastructure. They can also do sidewalks and stuff too, but like they're just, my weather report in the winter in Copenhagen, I'm sitting in my apartment, I live on a busy street, and I hear these little things, is it going to snow? And I check the phone, it's going to snow. So they're actually salting before. They're salting preventatively, and they're out as soon as the first flake hits the ground. Man, those people are the hardest working people in transport in Copenhagen when in the winter. And that's what my street sort of looks like. Sidewalks cleaned by us living in the building, cycle track, roads, cycle track, sidewalk, boom. And that's, the goal. But cycle tracks have the priority. You eliminate winter. Cycling should be reliable. If we have, 400,000 people on bikes every day in Copenhagen, and they walk out of their apartment and there's like 30 centimeters of snow, very few people are going to bother doing that. But we know that they're going to have to get to work, so there's no public transport system in the world designed for 400,000 new passengers from Wednesday to Thursday, right? So we have this issue. We need to do this. Other cities need to do it to prioritize cycling. I should be able to walk out of my apartment, and the bicycle should be my fastest A to B, my default, and that city should plan for that. Like taking a train somewhere. The train's supposed to leave at 12, it should leave at 12, right? And that's what cycling should be like. Data is incredibly important, man. I mean, it's really amazing when you have worked with so many cities to discover that there's a lot of cities that aren't really good at gathering data or don't understand the importance of it. Copenhagen is really the city in the world that gathers the most data about everything. There's this amazing website, it's only in Danish, but it's just like, you click garbage cans. You can see every garbage can, you can see when they're cleaned, when they're emptied. Oh, that one's done on Wednesdays and Fridays. Like everything is just open source and out there. It's just like, it's data porn. Man, that's my porn hub, that one, man. It's incredibly, it's incredibly important. So we know that, we have 650,000 people, and like another 1.4 million in Copenhagen in 23 municipalities around us. So we know that how do people get to the city of Copenhagen to go to work or education? 42% take a bike. That's a pretty cool number. If you live in the city of Copenhagen and you go to work or education there, it's 63%. That's not like left-wing hippies, saving the planet. That's like everybody. 67% of the members of parliament ride a bike to parliament every day, right? It's just the fastest way to get from A to B, right? 75% ride all winter as well. And we know this because we've been doing regular counts since 1970, and then in the early 90s, we got total game face on, and it went crazy. We have like 200 counting points. I know you guys are good in Helsinki. You have a lot of sensors that measure how many people are riding bikes and stuff. But it's just like 20. You point at a street on a map of Copenhagen, and I can probably tell you pretty close how many cyclists are there, because I've studied these maps. We know everything, and you have to know everything. It proves a point if you have skeptics. New bike lane on that street, nobody's going to ride that. Oh, shut up, because look. Because that, oh, God. It proves your point, it convinces the skeptics, it helps plan for the future. Okay, that new cycle track, actually it's like less than we expected. I wonder why. Let's look around, let's zoom out, and then we can start figuring stuff out. We have 17 new bridges over the harbor in Copenhagen in the past 10 years for bikes and pedestrians. In Copenhagen, it's just a bike bridge. We know that pedestrians will have a space on it too, but you can't sell a pedestrian bridge to the people of Copenhagen. Why? What the hell's that for? It's a bike bridge. Cool, let's build it. I get that, because that's a faster A to B to that place over there. So we know that it helps plan the future, and it's incredibly important. We know, do the math, right? We know that a car lane, on average in the world, can move about 1,300 vehicles per hour, and usually when flowing smoothly, right? Which is never in most cities, right? We know that a best practice cycle track, 2.5 meters wide, can move 5,900 people per hour. We're moving people down the street in Copenhagen. That's the only reason not the only reason, that's one of the main reasons we're doing it, is because that is the damn effective way to move people down the street. Then we have a bus lane here, so that's another, 40,000 people a day on 30, 40 on that bus route there. So that is an effective way to do it. That's why we do it. And we can prove it. Like the right wing in Copenhagen, it's usually a social democrat city for 120 years, so the right wing have never really had power, but we have a good inclusive democracy, so they have to agree on stuff. And they will never vote against new bicycle infrastructure, because somebody can say, data. Oh, you and your data, fine, yes to that. All they do is scramble to fight for car parking. It's really kind of like a reality show watching them, because we've convinced them, and it's a business model. And here's the business model: the people riding bikes every day in Copenhagen, they contribute 233 million euros a year to the public health, and that is not like theoretical 233 million. The mayor of Copenhagen will tell you that is budgetable. We know we're going to save that on public health, and so we can actually budget towards schools, parks, whatever else you need. Right? It's budgetable money. So that's like 2.5 billion euros since 2011. Right? We've invested 286 million euros in bicycle infrastructure in that same time frame. Right? I'm really bad at math. People who know me know how horrible I am. But I can see that that's a pretty good business model. You're making 233 million a year, and you're spending 286 over 10 years or 11 years. That just makes sense, right? It is the best business model in the history of transport. The cost-benefit analyses that we worked out in Copenhagen in 2007, which we still use today. A lot of you are thinking, like, how do you get that money? It's basically cyclists will live 7 years longer on average, and that's just this guy, right? Like just riding a 3-speed heavy old bike, not trying to win the Tour de France, just going to a cafe, right? And we'll live 7 years longer on average, which is pretty cool. We're gonna be stronger while we're alive. We're gonna be healthier. We're gonna have we're not gonna call in sick to our companies, because we're gonna have a reduction in sickness days, right? So we're stronger on the workforce. So we live longer and we live stronger. And the goal is that we die quickly. And that's what I want to do. I think that's really what everybody wants to do, right, to be honest. But you don't have to. Michael's not going to lie there, and society's going to go, oh, he's on a respirator now. Oh, he needs a new hip. Oh, Jesus. Just pain and just die, Michael. God, you made bad lifestyle choices, and we're paying for that now, right? So live long, live strong, die quick. Mic drop. Boom. That's the goal. And then time lost in traffic, which, like I said, is never on a bike and always in a car. So that's the cost-benefit analyses, how we got those numbers. But there's more numbers. We know that 1 kilometer of cycle track is paid off in under 5 years because of the benefits that I mentioned, but also there's a reduction in pollution because there's a reduction of 20% in cars and an increase of 20% on bikes. This is the great one. We know that every time somebody rides a bike in Denmark, 1 kilometer, we earn, as a state, 25 cents, 25 euro cents. No, that's American cents. 23 cents, right? It's just like money right there, because Michael rode a bike 1 kilometer. Oh my God, he did 2 kilometers. Oh, just make it rain, Michael, come on, give us the money. And then we know, that's the health benefits again, and we know that every time somebody drives a car 1 kilometer, we pay out 87 cents. We just throw it into this big black hole and we never ever see it again. It's simply the most cost-inefficient form of transport we've ever invented. And this number, That's, in Denmark we have a total of 150, or a maximum of 150% tax on new cars. You don't have that in Finland, right? Any country that doesn't have that, which is most countries, that number is going to be higher. We've been trying for years, since the 80s, with 150% tax on cars, on new cars, to try and get some of that money back, and we're still not even doing it. We're still just paying through the nose. So that number is even higher if you don't have this nasty, awesome tax on cars. So that's, I don't know what it would be in Finland, but it would probably make me throw up a little bit in my mouth. Like, it would literally be easily double, right? But anyway, cost efficient, and we know why we do it, and it's that. So I'm speaking at the Smart Cities Conference tomorrow, and they're going to think that technology will save the world. Like, we can figure everything out. Autonomous cars are coming, man. It's all going to be autonomous cars. Okay, how are we going to get rid of the 2 billion cars that actually exist? Where are they going to go? And how long will that take for people to slowly transition and say, we'll figure that out. Like, it's always like, we'll invent something for that. Okay, great. We know that electric cars, if every car in Europe was electric, we would need 50 new nuclear power plants to power electric cars. Like, and I've talked to them, and they're going, we'll invent something for that. Technology, man, we're going to figure that shit out next weekend, yeah. We'll have like a little camp, and we'll figure it out. But like, nobody's asking these questions. We're all like, oh my God, technology is so amazing. So technology regarding this topic, yeah, it helps, man, but it's not going to change the world, but it's going to help us. And what we have in Copenhagen on all the main streets leading to the city center is the green wave. And this is an idea from the 50s for cars. If you put the lights coordinated to 50 kilometers per hour, you technically will just keep flowing through the city. Never worked for cars anywhere on the planet. Now, in 2007, the city went, let's do that for bikes. Oh, wow, cool, yeah, a green wave for bikes on the street I showed you before. And there's meetings like, how fast should they go? And they're going like, I don't know, 25, 30 kilometers. They're all having meetings about it. And then they found out that the average speed for cycling in Copenhagen is 16 kilometers per hour. And it's same in Amsterdam as well. So when you got like Amsterdam and Copenhagen, you got like 1 million people riding bikes every day in total. The subconscious speed that we all want to go on average is 16 kilometers per hour. Like, that's also like, transport psychology. So they said, okay, well, we can't do 30. And everybody, yeah, those guys doing 30, those are the ones we hate in the traffic. Oh, that's true. So they went to 20. They chose 20 kilometers per hour because the people going 16, the university student, just rolling along, they can actually get to 20 pretty quick, right? 20, you got 20, you got those 4 extra kilometers per hour in your legs easy. And 20 makes the 30 kilometer per hour people slow down because, we're hacking their brains. They're going, I want to go fast, but I don't want to stop. Okay, I'll just go along 20, and then as soon as I get to that street, I'll do my 30 again or whatever, right? So we actually, and it's a massive success. It's all over Copenhagen now. It's in Amsterdam, it's in Montreal, it's in Barcelona, these green waves for bikes. It really prioritizes cycling, and it's doing the traffic lights, coordinating them for 20 kilometers per hour. That's an afternoon in the traffic engineering department. Maybe a bit, a week or whatever to coordinate it, to figure it out, but it's not hard. We also have 2.0 on the way. We have these cameras on these main boulevards, and instead of just the 20K standard, it's actually going to read the cyclists. It's going to see, okay, there's cyclists coming, and anonymize them because of privacy laws. Okay, there's 5 of them riding together. I mean, we don't ride together, but we do get into a flow, right? This guy's going the same speed as me. You sit on his tail, right? Okay, there's 5 cyclists coming. Okay, we're going to leave that light green for a minute, yeah? And then the technology will say they're through the light, and then that light will change, and then people can do the other thing. There's only 1 cyclist coming? Yeah, no, turn it red. One person is not going to overrule the other 15 people in the other transport forms at that intersection. So democracy, right? But that's the new one that's coming. It's going to be awesome. We also have sensors on certain locations in the Netherlands as well. So if it's cold, there's like this box on the light, and it knows if it's cold, and it knows if it's wet, or like raining or snowing, and the box knows. And then the box will prioritize the light signals. There'll be a sensor going, oh, cyclist here, yeah, totally, man, it's raining, man. What are you doing out here? It's -5. Anyway, we'll get you home. The box doesn't actually talk. But so sorry to disappoint you if you thought it did. And then the motorists who just are sitting there in their warm cars listening to their music, they're given the delay, right? And cyclists are prioritized through certain intersections. So that technology is awesome. That helps. So we need Technology is a tailwind. That's all we want on a bike is a tailwind, right, to push us. And we don't need the hurricane, right, because hurricanes don't really, we don't need a technological hurricane to do all of this stuff. I get like tech companies, the big ones, calling me, go, oh, we're going to do like a boot camp, man, a hackathon weekend. We're gonna get people to ride bikes, man, and through technology. And literally I've had conversations, and if I'm in a bad mood, and I'm talking like SAP, there's this one big company, or there was one lady, I feel bad for her, but she's going, no, we're gonna change the world with data, big data, and people. And I'm going, no, you can't. Like, it's bullshit, man. We got like 100 years of experience. All of this anthropology, and she's going, no. And I'm going, no. Like, seriously, it's a waste of, like, you literally don't do your hackathon. Like, literally save money and don't go hack something else. Because this is a waste of my time, and it's a waste of everybody's time, because we literally don't need that. We need other kinds of technology, but we don't need that whole, I'm going to change the world with technology, man, when we've already figured stuff out. So I was in a bad mood that day, but usually I'm more diplomatic, which I'm not. But so it's all been invented. This is like, oh my God, bike lanes. Oh, you're in an American city. They're going, oh God, cycle tracks. Oh. But here you're a little bit more in the loop, right? But it's all been invented. There's really, the green wave was from the 50s, and then we translated it here. The weather sensor, that's a new thing, fine. But bike share is a kind of a new thing, right, around the world. But generally, it's all been invented. So the standard, the gold standard, is the curb-separated cycle track, physically separating the cyclists from the pedestrians and the cars. Everybody has their space, and you don't mix. That's the standard in Danish planning. And we've done this for a while. This is the very first curb-separated cycle track being put into place 1915 in Copenhagen. Like we said, right, we got lots of bikes. Back then it was like bikes everywhere, and they said, right, okay, we're gonna separate this now. And what's that? 104 years of experience. If you talk about design, this clicker went through some tests, right? They had a whole bunch of people holding it. What do you think about the weight? And they did all this. We've been doing this for like 104 years. We kind of got to figure it out, right? It's best practice. There's the gold standard, and it works. It's we know everything about the capacity. You got hills. We know how to design up hills. There's standards from the 1920s that are still in place today in Denmark and the Netherlands for hills about width and capacity and whatever. How long is the hill? How steep it is? And what kind of infrastructure to put in there? It's amazing. We stand on the shoulders of generations of planners and who've got this stuff figured out. And you used to have it figured out. Helsinki. My friend Marek found these here from the city of Helsinki. He found these old maps in your archives. When did you send them to me? Where are you, first of all? Oh, yeah. It was like 8 years ago, right? Yeah, like long. Yeah. I was here 9 years ago, and you sent me, like 8 years ago, you found these in the archives. And so basically, beautiful old maps, and back then they had pens, and they did colored pens. So this is what they are. This is the infrastructure for bikes in Helsinki in 1937. So I just took this map and put it onto, it might not be perfect because I was in a hurry, but that's kind of where they would be today. I can't remember, actually I was going to ask you, Mark, like I think they're cycled, these ones here, it's on both sides of the street like we do in Copenhagen, right? Like one way on both sides of the street. And then there's the dotted lines. I don't know if those were just bicycle streets. Cycle lanes. Okay, cool. But that's not bad for like 1937 Helsinki, small industrial city. The other one is bicycle counts, where they went out there and and did their counting, right? The thickest lines are 10,000 cyclists. And then they actually did thickness with their pens, so there's like maybe 5, maybe that's 10, 5, 2,000, whatever. There's a lot of counts that were done in Helsinki in 1937. There were a lot of people riding bikes in this city, man. If you got 10,000 here and here in 5, I don't know, do the math. Like there's lots. And you had the infrastructure, and you were an amazing bicycle city. So you've been there. And then we all made the mistakes in the 50s, right? And then forgot a lot of stuff. But now we know, after 104 years of doing this in Denmark, that we only have 4 types of bicycle infrastructure in Danish bicycle planning. It's Danish design boiled down through experience into something simple. So there's basically, briefly, I got to wrap up soon. It's no infrastructure. It's a residential street, right? There's low speeds, not a lot of cars. Okay, I have the easiest job in the world. I asked 2 questions. Michael, we need bicycle infrastructure on this street, and Michael says, how many cars per 24 hours? Great. What's the speed limit for those cars right now? Great. Number 3, thank you. And I send the invoice, and I go to the Bahamas. I haven't figured that out yet. I'm working on that business model. But it's that simple. Nobody in Danish cities can disagree. They're going, yeah, two or three, yeah, okay, yeah, great. And they all know what it means, and they all know how to build it. So no infrastructure. Then when the speed limit hits 40, or the volume of cars reaches whatever level, I can't remember, then we will have bike lanes. We will paint a lane, minimum 2.3 meters wide, one way, both sides of the street. When the speed limit hits 50 or 60, we curb separate, like I showed you before, right? Like with the physical curb. And there are many ways around the world to separate cyclists. There's like planters now in Vancouver. So you're cycling through a jungle and there's cars on the other side. Like there's other ways of doing it, right? This is just what we did. So you can separate however you like. And then when you get 70K and up and motorways, you get the bikes the hell away from the cars. You don't mix those at all at that speed. That's homicide. And what's interesting, because this is interesting for you guys in Helsinki, we bi-directional. The ones where you cycle on the same cycle track. We threw that out 20 years ago in Denmark. It wasn't safe enough. We went, yeah, no, we're never going to do that again. That was stupid. Except where there are no cross streets for cars. So along the harbor, through a park, along a river, whatever. You don't have cars crossing. That's where it's dangerous. So there we will do it. And along all the motorways leading to leading to Copenhagen, there's like awesome cycle tracks on both sides, and they're all bi-directional because like it's just you're in the middle of nowhere, there's no cars, so you allow yourself to do that there. And now I see cities that have had bi-directional. I was working in Montreal, who've had them since the 1980s, and they said, right, Michael, we want to go unidirectional now. Copenhagen standard. How do we connect up the old ones with the new ones? I'm going, I have no idea. I can answer absolutely any question you have. It's all in my head, but nobody knows how to do that, which is why you shouldn't have made the mistake in the 80s, right? So this is an interesting challenge. The little remaining challenge is how to connect that. But yeah, that's it's all been invented. You copy paste, you save lives, you save money, you get the better results than you're ever going to get by designing badly. You can probably design a chair with two legs, where you have to, sort of balance while you're on it. Yeah, but nobody's going to buy that, right? They're going to end up 3 legs or 4, right? We know that. So, like, you see weird shit around the world, man. This is Buenos Aires. They're doing well, but you don't put bidirectional on the street, and certainly not that narrow. This is what they do in North America. They put the bike lanes on the wrong side of the parked cars, between the opening doors and moving traffic. Stupidest place in the world to put bikes. Really great for protecting the paint jobs of the parked cars, because you just got squishy cyclists, right? But this is completely brain dead. And then in some cities, Barcelona, Washington, a handful of cities, they decided to put bike lanes down the middle of the street. And when I first saw that, oh my God. I was just like, when I tweeted this and I said, find out whoever made that and fire them immediately and retrain them for something else. And it was one of their most respected bicycle planners in the States, so I got called the Donald Trump of urbanism. Because that's where Donald lives down there, right? Or the other way. And in that same week, I got called the Bernie Sanders of urbanism. So I was super confused that week. Who am I? But this is stupid. You don't put sidewalks down the middle of the street. Why would you do this? How do I get over to this building here, right? It just doesn't make any sense. It's all been invented. So, and it's all being implemented all over the world. Like, we do my company that I used to own, Copenhagen's index every 2 years. We do the world's most bicycle-friendly city ranking. Nobody ever did that before, and all of a sudden now it's a thing. So they have to do it now every 2 years because of rankings. We love rankings in our society. It's really well. But now it's not so much about Copenhagen. We got it all figured out. Just copy paste for free, whatever. But and Amsterdam's awesome. Now it's like Seville. 0.2% on bikes to 7% in 4 years because infrastructure fell out of the sky in a network, right? Boom. Oh, they'll never cycle here. It's 45 degrees in the summer. Yeah, well, that's 7% who are doing it now, so shut up, right? Calgary in Canada, like colder winters than you guys, man, and they put in a network now, and they're cycling, they're at 3% out of nowhere. Like, it's a big, stupid North American city with a downtown and suburbs, right? And they're doing it. Oslo is really the darling. I know I made fun of them before, and there's a reason for that. Jesus, is Oslo. But bike-wise, they're pretty awesome. They're 140 kilometers. Last 2 years, they've removed 4,000 car parking spots in Oslo. The ring inside the Ring 1 road it's car-free. If you live there with a car, you have a permit, but you can't drive in. It's just shut down, man. That's the future. Buenos Aires, another darling. I put you guys there because you guys made it into the Copenhagenized Index in the last version, number 20 or like down, huh? 18. All right, cool. Which is awesome. But the competition's getting tougher. The top spots, Copenhagen, Utrecht, Amsterdam, they're going to stay there, right? It's like any football league in the world. You got your, Barcelona and Real Madrid, right? And then all the other ones yo-yo up and down, right? They drop in, drop out. And that's going to be like that because all of a sudden this city takes it to the next level. Oslo came from number 55 to number 20. Out of nowhere. And that is just like, it shows what's possible. We can have an urban revolution. Ljubljana, this is the story I want to tell you about here at the end, is beautiful city, 250,000 people. They had a mayor in the late 60s, early 70s, and they had 2% on bikes, and he said, I want to do more, like way ahead of this curve, this guy. He was like, before anybody was talking about it. And he said, and his planners and engineers are going, okay, shit, let's go to Copenhagen, because that was known as a bike city. So they went there probably, like they did go there, just taking photos, like, Cold War spies of bicycle infrastructure with their Holga cameras. I don't know what they did. And they went back and they're going, this is what they do, Copenhagen. And the mayor's going, do this, Ljubljana, okay. And they did. And they put in 40 kilometers of this. And they went from 2% to 10% in 1 year. We're like, amazing. And they're expanding more now. Really a great small city to visit. They're like so many different things that they're doing in urbanism. But it's getting tougher. And, I know what you're doing here. This is my job to know what you guys are doing. And Oskari sent me the latest maps and stuff. Not in an American city. I know that. You guys got 11% on bikes, and that's up from the last time I was here, definitely. And I know what the plans are, and I know that, I know the investment's going to pay off, and I know that, there's really no argument for doing this. This is what cities are doing all over the world. This is the new normal. This is not some crazy-ass idea. This is like, yeah, duh, right? And if you do it, better than anybody else and faster, then you just get famous. Like people come here, the New York Times is writing about you. You got people coming here to study trips going, wow, how did you do it so fast? And, that's what we want to, that's the stories we want to tell. There's two politicians we remember for building motorways, One was the American president Eisenhower or Roosevelt? Eisenhower, who built the American highway network in the late 1940s. He was directly inspired, literally, you can read it in the documents, by this other politician named Adolf Hitler, who built the Autobahns, and they destroyed Hitler, and in Germany they went, but that idea about the motorways, cool. It's not a role model you really want to aspire to be, right? But all these mayors that have done amazing things, they're the ones doing the keynote circuits the rest of their lives. Their legacy, boom, it's there. The mayors of Copenhagen and all these other cities, they got a speaking career because we want to hear these stories. You did what and how long? My God, that's amazing. Tell me, we want to be inspired by that. So I know what you guys are doing. See, the next index is out in a couple months, so we'll see how that goes. But the Russians are coming. I grew up in the Cold War. That was scary. The Russians are coming. And you live in Finland, so it's still scary. I know, God. But Denmark sent 200 soldiers to Estonia last week, so we're good. Yep, those, literally, we're reading the 200, okay. Anyway, but the Russians are coming, and this is a sign that this is going to the next level into the different paradigm. 3 years ago, we got an email from a small Russian city nobody's ever heard of, in the heart of the Russian oil fields. And, they're going, hello, we want to be bicycle city, Russia best, please. Yes, okay. And I'm reading that email, I'm going, oh yeah, right, whatever. Seriously, sanctions, exchange rates, nobody had ever called from Russia, just some conferences. Yeah, whatever. And tell us how much. Oh yeah, here's the price. Normally, we don't tell them the price at the beginning. We engage in a conversation. What are your needs? All that business stuff. And we said, yeah, here's the price. I'm never going to hear from you again. And 2 days later, they're going, yes, please come next week. I'm going, what? And I had a new intern. He had just arrived from Canada. He just basically sat down on his first day. I'm going, you got a passport? We're going to Russia. Oh, shit. And we went to this place, Almatyevsk, there's the name. And this mayor's 35. He's a mayor, but it's still a dictatorship. He's appointed to be the mayor. So let's be frank about their situation, right? But he saw an urbanist conference once, and he's going, I want to do crazy stuff in my town. And he's a total, bizarre man in Russian politics. But he has the blessing of the president. He's in Tatarstan, so they have a president, and then there's Putin, whatever. And it's all, we know what everybody's doing. You can do that. You can play with your urbanism there, and we'll see how that works. So he's built parks and lakes, and people are going, why do we have park? We have shopping mall. And he's going, just go to the park. And they do. They just all go to this park now and promenade around it. And then he said, we want to be the best bicycle city in Russia. which is not a hard competition. It's like I'm going to be the world champion in some really super easy thing, right? And anyway, he said, just tell us what to do, and we'll do it. And money, fine, no problem. It's their national oil company paying for it. Storytelling. Russian oil fields, oil company, bicycle city in Russia. And so this was the greatest job I will ever have in urban planning, literally. And it's only Russia and China who can do stuff, as we also know that. But this mayor was so cool. He's such a nice guy, and really loved in this town. 160,000 people. And his engineers, when we're starting to meet with them, we literally started counting how many times they rolled their eyes. There's just like this old, and then I told the mayor that, and then he's, that guy was fired. I kind of felt bad. But he was reallocated to another department. He wasn't fired. And so we got some new young people in, and whatever, study class to Copenhagen with us. We started crashing this document. He says, we need it fast because the snow's melting and we want to start building. And how many kilometers do we need? And I said, okay, 160,000 people, I don't know, 100 kilometers. I would, 200 with 100 of it separated. Okay. And in the middle of this process, we're getting text messages. After we had delivered the document, the big 200-page document with everything they needed to know. Okay, now we come to a corner of this street. What do we do other side street? And we go, dude, it's page 42. Just checking. Okay. And then at the end of that day, we have photos of asphalt that had been laid. The best bicycle infrastructure on the planet, literally today, is not Copenhagen, it's Almaty. And they stole everything. We have these railings in Copenhagen where, because we don't want to stop or get off our bikes, we can wait. Do you have any in Helsinki at all? A lot of cities are getting them. I've seen them in Poland, man. So yeah, the Poles are coming. Oh, you can put your foot up at the light, right? They took these garbage cans tilted towards cyclists, which I designed in Copenhagen. They just copied. They didn't ask for any kind of permission. We went there and they were going, what's that? He says, good idea. But they made this. It's amazing. So when we arrived, there was nobody on bikes. Literally, they had no data. There was a few hardcore cyclists or whatever. And the goal is 10% on bikes within 5 years. They are at 8% after 3 years. So we know that they're going to rock it. And now the jobs coming in from Russia. As soon as you open the doors to Russia, another city's going, oh, okay. So now there's clients in Kazakhstan and Russia. It's really cool. Last place in the world I would have thought that would have happened. But the Russians are coming. When they're doing it, man, it gets embarrassing for the rest of the cities who aren't. Detroit, we did a huge, massive bicycle strategy for them for the next 100 years of transport. They have no money. They've been broke. They went bankrupt, so they have really nowhere to start. So it's not going to be physically separated like the oil-rich Russians here, but it's going to be, protected with bollards, and they're going with the best practice as well. And the guy in Detroit, he said, we don't want to be the motor city. We want to be the mobility city. That's his quote, right? So that's the sign that things are changing. And we are planning our cities differently. We are thinking differently. But I just like everybody to remember, if you work in planning or even in architecture, whatever you do, you got some kind of little thing you got to focus on. I'm going to try and design this one little cycle track on this street. But you got to remember, man, if you live in cities, you got to step back and you got to go, we're making cities better, right? We're building monuments. The greatest monument, well, not the greatest, the monument in Copenhagen that everybody knows is this little naked green lady on a rock, right? The Little Mermaid. For 115 years, she's been sitting there, naked and cold. And people come from all over the world to see this little naked green lady, and I'm going, I hate her. I like the story, but not the, that's the symbol of Copenhagen. Come on, we're a cool city. We can do better than that. So what I think is the greatest monument that we built is our bicycle infrastructure network. It's human. People are using it, man, 24/7. It's ever-changing. It'll never be the same at any one point in time. And it's an organic monument. It is a beautiful monument, and these monuments are rising all over the world. This is an open-source monument, man. You can, Almaty of all places, what you're doing in Helsinki. We're building these new monuments that make our cities better, that improve human lives, that basically, will stand for hundreds of years if we do it right. And this is a time we just woke up and realized, wait, we can change our cities. We're doing that now. This age of urbanism has just begun. And remember, if you live in a city, I don't care if you ride a bike. I really don't care if you ride a bike. I often say, if you don't see bicycles as part of the solution, then you are part of the problem. And I don't think you guys are part of the problem here. But man, do you want to be a problem or do you want to be a monument builder? Because that's what we are. All of us living in cities, we are building monuments, whether we contribute directly or not. But we can't stand in the way of the monuments because they will, because they will rise. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for a little elongated but very great presentation.
How long was that? You guys are paying attention.
People are
It's
still
your
paying
fault.
attention. Yeah.
People are listening. You keep talking, man. Sorry about that.
It's another thing we can learn from him is how to communicate. Us Finns are not that good at it yet, but we're getting better. Since we are at overtime, we have time for 2 questions. So people who have the best question in here, so the 2 first people who raise their hands get the questions. So. We choose. Yes. Okay.
First of all, thanks a lot for your very interesting and inspiring presentation.
Thank you.
My name is Alexander. I'm a law student and I've been doing some cycling advocacy here in Helsinki as well. And there's one thing in particular from the earlier parts that sprang into my mind.
You wrote notes? Holy shit, okay. This is a long question, dude.
Otherwise, I would lose track of my thought.
Yeah, okay.
About cars, and you told about taking the 3 kids to school or kindergarten anyway, something like that, that there's a reason to have a car. But sometimes I feel that in Finland, for many people, the car is something much, much more. It's part of their identity. It's a part of their daily personal space. The only time they can have the solitude that we Finns so crave. So, and also the car lobby is telling that the motorists are repressed. They pay heavy car taxes, little less heavy than yours, and so on. So I just thought, would you have any kind of idea how to start tackling this problem?
So when we pass anti-smoking laws, like we make tougher smoking laws, we don't ask the smokers. We don't bring them to the table to discuss it with them. We just do the laws, right? Like, driving in cities is the new smoking, man. We don't need to talk, very much anymore. I mean, we know what to do, and we can see so many cities doing it. So, and a lot of what I'm saying is the urban context. This is Helsinki, Turku, Tampere. These are or Oulu. It's not out in the country. That's a whole different thing. I don't even talk. You need a car to get around, even out in Denmark. Fine. But this is the urban context, and when you see so many cities doing these amazing things, we know what's possible. I live in a very densely populated city. Nobody, like 9% of the population drive a car, every day. So we have cargo bikes, right, which you see outside here. We have 40,000 in Copenhagen. Like, you get a kid, it's like, oh, honey, we're pregnant. Oh, and the guy's going, let's get a car. And the wife's going, no, we're going to get a cargo bike. And I've already have the brochures. And they get a cargo bike. It's amazing. So we know that there are other solutions for urban living, urban logistics. 51% of all goods moved in a city can be moved by bike. We have studies to show this. So there are lots of things that we can do. And the talking about, but I need my car, maybe not. Like in my neighborhood, like 74% of the population go to the supermarkets or the shopping districts, on bikes or on foot, right? And only 5% drive a car. That's most of Copenhagen. That's most of Helsinki. That's where you start, right? You start the journey here in the city. You transform it, and then when they talked about the 20 kilometers per hour of the green wave, and they said, let's do that. They were only discussing the right speed for bikes, and at the next meeting, they said, hey, we figure out, what about the cars going 20? And everybody's going, oh, we didn't even think about them. They'll figure out, whatever. Who cares, right? It wasn't a problem. And that's really that's my answer. You know what? I have all my friends who are my age with kids, they have cars. I don't need one. They have them, but they use them for the summer house, right? And they use them to go to grandma's on the weekend or whatever, They don't actually use them in the daily context, and there's very few cities in Europe where you need to. So if we're going to a new paradigm shift, urban revolution, punk in kaupunki. Thank you for laughing again. I'm so proud of that joke. Then we don't talk, we just do.
Thanks.
Cool.
Was it yours?
Yeah, I guess mine was a little bit from the same subject that Alexander had. Like when you create change or you do change, there's certain resistance. It's built in, I guess, as well in the humans. So when that happens, I think you had an example of data, that you will need data to kind of like show what's going to happen. But also, is it also about communication? And like making brochures and all kind of things. What do you do in Denmark to like show to the people who are in doubt that this is going to work?
Yeah, the city of Copenhagen will tell you that they've never communicated cycling. They didn't make any brochures. They have done for years now the biannual bicycle account where they have all the data, but it's basically a data thing. That's about the only brochure they've made. They will literally say, yeah, we didn't spend money on marketing, we just did it. Because if you do it, things change. Like you can have, in cities like, we're going to put a bike lane or a cycle track here. Oh, and the neighbors are, at the protest meetings and, they're complaining and there's, the battle has begun. As soon as you actually build it, if you put it in, like while they're in that meeting complaining about it and they come out and go, yeah, we're not going to have oh shit, what's that? Oh, whatever, let's get a beer. Like literally, you just build it. The Seville did it, right? There's a mayor in Montreal who transformed his very densely populated borough. He's like my favorite mayor ever. Like he just went, he says, if I'm not pissing somebody off every day, I'm doing my job wrong. Like he's a real character. And he, maybe you can't do that in a lot of places, but he did it. And he said, you just do it fast and you leave something green behind. Oh, this is a cycle track, but oh my God, there's like little flower beds along the side. Oh, I hate oh, that's nice. That's a nice tree. That's going to be big. Oh, look at, and like literally, you just do it, man. If as much as you can in the context of your city and your politics in a city, and your rules and standards and whatnot, you just do whatever you can. Like Copenhagen is Copenhagen today because of pilot projects. Like this was the golden key for us back in like literally in the 70s and 80s, even earlier. We just said, we're going to test this for 6 months or a year, and then if it doesn't work, we'll take it out. And so citizens going to want that. That sucks. Yeah, dude, it's like 6 months. Yeah, well, that's not going to work. That's horrible. Like literally 2 days after they start the pilot project, that person has already forgotten about it. Like it's already like, I can't change that. So like the pedestrian street in the center of Copenhagen, it was the world's longest. In the 1960s, the city wanted to do a pilot for 2 years to make it a pedestrian street instead of the main car-clogged street in our city center. There were protests. There were literally posters that said, "We are not Italians. we're Nordic. We don't want to walk down the street and have a conversation with some friends. What the fuck? That we want to drive to there, And then the city went, oh God, seriously, whatever. And anyway, they just made it. And like 2 days later, everybody's going, I love this. This is so great. We can just walk and talk. Like we discovered we were Italians, or we discovered we were just Homo sapiens who want to interact with other people without maybe knowing it after 70 years of car-centric planning and sitting in our cars, as you said. It's a bubble. Yeah, but like, what? Burst the bubble, big stick. So pilot projects changed everything. And that main street, the busy street, that was a pilot project for a year. And this is a funny inside story. Like the city of Copenhagen, the mayor at the time, because they didn't know really how it was going to go when you cut off the cars, and they thought they would be going through the neighborhoods, and you didn't want cars driving through nice neighborhoods, and there was like a week of chaos, and then everything went away. But he said, make this, like they had bus islands, buses can go through. So he said, make it temporary because it's a pilot project, but make it as permanent as possible, but still look temporary. So they literally designed a bus island and then a cycle track. They literally designed it with a lot of asphalt, but like they made it badly. They literally they literally told the workers, make it look like shit. And then they're going, really? And so it just looked like kind of like some blocks that just filled in with asphalt. It looked super temporary. But if it didn't work by the end of the year, and they really believed it would. Pilot projects, you kind of know that's going to work, but there were some unknown factors, whatever. The mayor say, oh, we don't have the budget to take it out. Sorry, we'll have to wait another year. And so he was actually planning for the opportunity of failure, but it worked. It was amazing, but that was just hilarious. Using municipal money to make really bad infrastructure, which might be actually what a lot of cities just do normally. Yeah, okay, never mind that. Pilot projects, man. You hack it. Hack the system, play the game, and engage the citizens. I don't want a stupid bike lane in my neighborhood. Yeah, okay, but can you come out and talk to us? Because along with the bike lane, we're putting in trees. This is Yari from the tree department. We need some trees. You mix it up. It's not about bikes. It's not about everybody riding bikes everywhere all the time, cycling, woohoo. No, it's about what the bicycle could do for a city, and along with all the other things we can do. Literally, you stop talking about bike. In some places I say, don't talk about bikes. Get together and call it like an environmental coalition, or whatever you want to call it. So it's bikes and green space and everything. And then once you do that, it's kind of hard to complain about 4 things all at once for regular citizens. So, and then you actually engage them saying, yeah, the bike lane's going to happen, but where do you want the trees? Where do you live? You live that, and you engage. And this is Copenhagen's really good at citizen engagement. So there you go. Cool.
Can I have one more question?
Oh!
Okay.
That wasn't a question, was it? Yeah.
I'm living in Denmark. I'm bicycling in your lovely city in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
And hello, my name is Jana Taus.
Hi, Taus.
And my question is, there's one thing that hasn't changed over the years, and it's the sign for the bike lane.
What?
It's a sign for the bike lane.
The sign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at it? It's a man's bike.
Yeah, like the pictogram.
Yeah, the pictogram is a male-dominated.
No.
So this is
the bike is a man.
yeah,
guy
this is
bike,
a gender question. So when does Copenhagen start being like female-friendly?
Awesome question.
Yeah.
Do you know what's happening with traffic lights for the pedestrian lights? Have you seen what's going on? If you haven't, like Vienna, the little red man, little green man. In Vienna, they have like every different orientation. There's like 2 women, little green women walking, and then there's like 2 men, or they mix it all up. It's super cool. We're talking about doing this in.
But it's funny in your picture.
No, yep.
So the bridge, I love the bridge. And then you have the sign painted on the
Yeah.
lane. And then you have a picture with the people actually biking on it.
Mhm.
And they all have these grandma bikes.
Yeah. And 55% of all cyclists in Copenhagen are women. So yeah. Yeah, sure. These are like, this is way. No, I get it. And these are like, you have to have signs first of all, and they developed the sign, and it is universal, and it's everywhere, which is really good for if you go to another Danish city, everything's identical. The infrastructure, that's a good national kind of uniformity. But yeah, I thought you're going to love this. I thought about this, and I said, yeah, why is that? And so I actually took the Danish bike picture. I don't know if I have where's the clicker, dude? So that you know what we're talking about. I can't remember if I actually have a photo of it somewhere. No, that's an American one. I also hate pictograms where it's a sports cyclist. Yeah. I've done a lot of visual work, like marketing work with other cities, branding bikes, and I have everybody sitting up straight like their mother taught them. That's another one. That's gender neutral. Yeah. I don't know if I have one. All it is a simple bike pictogram of a guy bike, but really Danish design, beautiful, and like the design of it is super simple. I took it and I made a lady's bike. I raised the handlebars up and I took away the boy bar, as we call it in English, and put 2 down here. I've actually got it, and I use it in when I have to use them in graphic design. So I did the work for you. But getting the road directorate to change that, not going to happen. But we can hack it, We can go out and take adapt them with like some paint or whatever, right? We can do some urbanism, tactical urbanism. All right. But important question.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. It's a great pleasure, and thank you, Mikael.
Thank you.
Coming all the way here
All right.
to educate us.
See you.